Good evening, friends. Welcome to another edition of the Media Foundation IIC Media Dialogues. This discussion is part of a series of panel discussions that the Media Foundation holds throughout the year in association with the India International Center on an important subject related to the media in the country. Among the dialogues held in the recent past are on topics such as the media, Operation Sindoor and India's diplomatic outreach, challenges confronting the Indian language media, and new criminal codes and media laws, which weigh media freedom. Today's topic is the Electoral Rolls controversy and the media. As you all know, the controversy has been on top of the headlines in recent weeks, and we have an outstanding panel with us today to analyze the issue and shed light on the way the media has reported it. Before I proceed to introduce our panelists, please allow me to say a few words about the Media Foundation. The foundation is a non-profit which was set up in 1979 with the aim of upholding freedom of speech in the media. It was founded by such stalwarts of Indian journalism as B.G. Verghese, N.S. Jagannathan, Ajit Bhattacharya, Kuldeep Nair, Arun Shourie, and many others. Apart from the media dialogues, TMF also conducts 3 prestigious journalism awards: the Chameli Devi Jain Award for Outstanding Woman Journalist of the Year, the Kamla Mankekar Award for Journalism on Gender, and the Vishwanath Dutt Delhi Press Award for Fearless Journalism. May I now introduce our panelists We have with us Dr. S.Y. Quraishi, a former Chief Election Commissioner. Dr. Quraishi was India's 17th Chief Election Commissioner and steered the Election Commission for a period of nearly 2 years, beginning July 2010. A prolific writer and commentator, Dr. Quraishi has authored several books, among them India's Experiment with Democracy, The Life of a Nation Through Its Elections. His most recent work was released earlier this month, titled Democracy's Heartland, Inside the Battle for Power in South Asia. We also have with us well-known political activist and psephologist, Mr. Yogendra Yadav, a noted political scientist. Mr. Yadav is a member of the National Executive of Swaraj India, a political party that aims to bring in transparency and accountability in electoral politics. Also on the panel is Ashutosh, for many years a well-known face on TV, and now the co-founder of Hindi news website Satya Hindi. Ashutosh is a columnist and the author of 5 books, among them Hindu Rashtra and Reclaiming Bharat. Reclaiming Bharat is about the 2024 general elections and delves, among other things, into the reasons for the BJP's failure to get a parliamentary majority last year. And finally, we have on the panel Manisha Pande, who is editorial director at Newslaundry, a leading Delhi-based news and media critique website. Manisha has been a journalist for over 15 years, covering all aspects of the Indian news media industry. She hosts a hugely popular news and satire show, TV Nuisance, that takes a critical look at news coverage on mainstream TV news channels. Manisha is also a recipient of the prestigious Ramnath Goenka Award for Best Investigative Journalism in 2016. Moderating the discussion will be senior journalist Pamela Philipose. Pamela is currently ombudsperson of the news portal thewire.in. She has also served as editor-in-chief of Women's Feature Service. She has also been senior associate editor at the Indian Express. Her books include Media's Shifting Terrain, 5 Years That Transformed the Way India Communicates, and A Boundless Fear Gripped Me, How the Other Half Lived in the Pandemic's Shadow, which is a documentation of the experience of the pandemic in Delhi's shanty towns. Her latest work, which came out in July 2025, is on freedom of speech, entitled Framing the Media, Government Policies, Law, and Freedom of the Press in India. Over to you, Pamela.
Thank you very much for your very generous descriptions. And friends, we are going to speak on one of the most important topics of the day. And I'm so glad there's so many of us in this room, because I think all of you are people who actually are going to make a difference just by virtue of being here and talking and interacting with people, because that's how the public sphere asserts itself. And that's the intention of events like this. I remember these lines from Gopal Krishna Gandhi's foreword to S.Y. Quraishi's last book, many years ago, The Making of the Great Indian Election. He says, India is valued the world over for a great many things, but for three overall important things. That's the Taj Mahal, Mahatma Gandhi, and the Indian electoral democracy. So we know where the third one is at the moment, blowing in the wind. That's where it is. And it's really distressing that we have to be presiding over its imminent demise if things go on as it is at the moment. Our founding fathers and mothers were only too aware of the importance of the Election Commission of India, in whose care they placed the fragile body of the democratic country. H.N. Kunzuru, speaking at the Constituent Assembly, put it like this: if the electoral machinery is defective, or is not efficient, or is worked by people whose integrity cannot be depended upon, that's very important, the last. The integrity of people whose integrity we cannot depend on. Democracy will be poisoned at the source. That's what he said. Today, never have those words appeared more apt, because the poisoning of democracy at its source is happening in front of our eyes. It took us a while to realize that the capture of elections is now part of our electoral democracy, or so-called electoral democracy. Soon we are going to see an all-India rollout of SIR. The impunity with which the ECI is carrying on with its agenda, despite pushback from the opposition, reveals how its skewed architecture, based on the decision-making power of the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, may be patently faulty, but does the job well enough for the ruling party. In March 2023, a 5-judge bench ruled that a committee be appointed comprising the CJI. The impartiality was central to this, and of course, the leader of the opposition and the Prime Minister. In December that year, the Chief Election Commission and other Election Commissioner Bill 2023 was passed by Parliament. Under it, a committee to nominate members to the EC, comprising the Prime Minister, leader of the opposition, and a union cabinet minister nominated by the Prime Minister, was to make the selection. So you can see how the system has been so skewed. The Supreme Court will now, I believe, weigh in on this, and whether this last bill violates the spirit of the 5-bench ruling is the question before us. Let us see what the SC says in this matter. But what has become clearer with every passing day is the intent at destroying the very concept of universal franchise in this country and return to the colonial era of limited, selective franchise. The audaciousness of the project is only overshadowed by its ambition. The special intensive revision process that the ECI has initiated in Bihar and will now roll out across India amounts to nothing less than the purging of the electoral rolls in a manner that would create a legal electorate that is more in sync with the ruling party's political future. If we don't, as part of the media, speak out against this, then who will? Indeed, our own future as free media is tied directly to the strength of this process of elections. And we'll be doing more than letting down the nation if we are silent at the present moment. We will be letting down ourselves. The Media Foundation, with its courageous founders who we've just heard about, people like Ramesh Thapar, Elsie Jain, B.G. Varghese, would certainly have done the same if this abuse of the ECI as an institution had taken place in their time. I'm delighted with the speakers we have today. We can't think of a better panel. Each one of them have done their fullest to shine a light on this tragic saga. My suggestion is that we start with the two extreme, left and right, and then move closer.
Who's right?
You're the left. So Ashutosh, please start.
How much time we have?
Hindi, English, दोनों चलेगा.
कितना वक्त?
5 मिनट, 5-7 मिनट.
10 मिनट.
We have to end. That's true.
नमस्कार. बातचीत को शुरू करने के पहले मैं चाहता हूं कि हम सब लोग हेलो आवाज़ आ रही? जी हाँ, आवाज़ अभी बुलंद हो जाएगी, बिना इसके भी सुनाई पड़ेगी. आज की इस वार्ता को शुरू करने के पहले मुझे लगता है कि हम लोगों को उस एक शख्सियत को ज़रूर याद करना चाहिए जिन्होंने भारत के इलेक्टोरल रोल्स को और हिंदुस्तान के चुनाव को बहुत गहरे में प्रभावित किया और ऐसे समय में हमें छोड़ के चले गए जब उनकी शायद सबसे ज़्यादा ज़रूरत थी. आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट जगदीप छोकर जी, ADR के डायरेक्टर, फाउंडर डायरेक्टर. आई थिंक ही इज़ वन ऑफ दोज हु शुड be remembered for fighting till the last, and he was one of those petitioners who went to the Supreme Court and at least got some concession. And of course Yogendra is also here, he's also fought like anything. ये जो मुद्दा है, मुझे लगता है कि पहली बार जब इतने सालों से मैंने इलेक्शन कवर किया है और इतने सालों से मैंने चुनाव को देखा है, पिछली बार जब मध्य प्रदेश के नतीजे आए तो मैं पहली बार बुरी तरीके से चौंका और कुछ बात समझ में भी नहीं आई कि आखिर क्या हुआ क्या. क्योंकि जिस मध्य प्रदेश की विधानसभा के चुनाव को भारतीय जनता पार्टी के अपने लोग कह रहे थे हम बुरी तरीके से हारने वाले हैं, वहाँ वो लगभग 2/3 बहुमत से चुनाव जीत गए. हम सब लोग बैठ के सोच रहे थे आखिर ऐसा क्यों हुआ, किस लिए हुआ. तो हमें लगा कि शायद हो सकता है हम लोगों का जो भारतीय जनता पार्टी को या जो सरकार को देखने का जो नज़रिया है वो एक ख़ास चश्मे से हम देखते हैं, तो हम अपने हिसाब से उसका इंटरप्रिटेशन करते हैं, अपने ही लोगों से बातचीत करते हैं और अपने ही निष्कर्ष पे पहुंच जाते हैं. फिर अपने ही निष्कर्ष से हम उन लोगों को रबिश भी करते हैं, अरे अब तो हार रहे हो. लेकिन मुझे एक बात मेरे दिमाग में खटक गई, वो ये थी कि जब छत्तीसगढ़ के नतीजे आए थे तो उसके पहले मेरी बीजेपी के एक बड़े नेता से बातचीत थी. उन्होंने कहा था, उनको इंचार्ज दरअसल बनाया गया था और उन्होंने कहा मेरे कंधे पे तो, मेरे सीने पे तो एक मरा हुआ सांप लपेट दिया गया है. और वहाँ भी भारतीय जनता पार्टी आश्चर्यजनक से रूप से जीती थी. खैर, हो सकता है हम लोगों का अनुमान गलत रहा हो और पार्लियामेंट के इलेक्शन में तो कम से कम मेरा अनुमान तो गलत नहीं था, लेकिन बहुत सारे लोग कह रहे थे 350 में बार बार कहता था कि बीजेपी विल स्ट्रगल टू गेट मेजॉरिटी नंबर्स. और मेरे बहुत सारे को पैनलिस्ट, मेरे अपने बहुत सारे दोस्त, उन लोगों ने बड़ा मजाक भी उड़ाया, कुछ लोगों ने इंसल्ट भी किया, कुछ लोगों ने इंटिमिडेट करने की भी कोशिश की और कुछ लोगों ने कहा ये तो पागल आदमी है. खैर, फाइनली मेरा जो निष्कर्ष था वो सही था, बीजेपी 240 पे आके रुकी. लेकिन उसके बाद हरियाणा और महाराष्ट्र, ये 2 इलेक्शन में जिस तरीके से परफॉर्मेंस हुआ है, मुझे लगता है कि जब तक मध्य प्रदेश, छत्तीसगढ़, हरियाणा और महाराष्ट्र, इन चारों इलेक्शंस को अगर हम पूरी समग्रता में नहीं देखते तब तक इस पूरी क्राइसिस को शायद समझ ही नहीं सकते. क्योंकि जो सवाल हमारे मन में थे, हमारे पास किसी तरीके का कोई सबूत नहीं था जो हम कह सके कहीं कुछ गड़बड़ हो रहा है, क्या नहीं गड़बड़ हो रहा है, लेकिन मन में जरूर था कहीं कुछ ना कुछ गड़बड़ हो रहा. समथिंग इज रॉन्ग समवेयर एंड वी आर नॉट एबल टू फाइंड वेयर एग्जैक्ट इन व्हाट एग्जैक्ट इज रॉन्ग. उसके बाद जब SIR हुआ, ठीक चुनाव के पहले, बिना किसी मीटिंग के, बिना किसी कंसल्टेशन के, बिना किसी बातचीत के, बिना कोई विमर्श तैयार किए, सडनली एक दिन आपने तय किया और अगले दिन से आपने लागू कर दिया. और मुझे अच्छी तरीके से याद है जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट मामला गया था तो जस्टिस धूलिया ने जो 3 सवाल पूछे तो आज भी बहुत वैलिड है कि आपने टाइमिंग क्यों ये चुनी, अभी क्यों, आपका जो प्रोसेस है वो क्यों, आधार कार्ड क्यों नहीं, और क्या आप सिटीजनशिप जानना चाहते हैं. उन तीनों के सवाल बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण सवाल थे और द इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग ये नहीं था कि जस्टिस या सुप्रीम कोर्ट क्या कह रहा था, मुझे उसमें बिल्कुल हैरानी नहीं थी. मुझे हैरानी इस बात की थी कि जिस ऑडेसिटी के साथ इलेक्शन कमीशन रिएक्ट कर रहा था. इलेक्शन कमीशन हैड गॉन टू द एक्सटेंट ऑफ टेलिंग टू द सुप्रीम कोर्ट दैट you don't have powers to even talk about us. Had gone to that extent. Supreme Court was telling them कि भाई आप आधार कार्ड का इस्तेमाल करिए. आधार कार्ड is not there for judging somebody's citizenship. But that's the job of the Home Ministry. I think the first meeting itself, Justice Dhulia ने ये बात कही थी. But they, despite 2 advisories, 2 बार उनको बताने की कोशिश की गई, उन्होंने नहीं माना अंत में. और फाइनली सुप्रीम कोर्ट को ऑर्डर देना पड़ा कि आपको ये आधार कार्ड लगाना पड़ेगा. बट आई थिंक द बिगेस्ट बॉम्बशेल वाज राहुल गांधीज प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑन महादेवपुरा, कि जब हुआ कि 1,250 जो वोट हैं वो ऐड किए गए हैं. आई थिंक दैट वाज द फर्स्ट टाइम व्हेन एवरीबडी जस्ट कॉट अप एंड रियलाइज कि देयर इज समथिंग रॉन्ग, देयर इज समथिंग सीरियसली रॉन्ग. एंड उसके बाद जब अभी आलन को लेके जब हुआ कि 6,000 से ज़्यादा वोटों को डिलीट किया गया. एंड दिस टाइम आई थिंक जो सवाल राहुल ने उठाए हैं, राहुल गांधी ने उठाए, आप उनके आलोचक हो सकते हैं, आप उनके प्रशंसक हो सकते हैं, आप उनसे आपका कोई लेना देना नहीं, लेकिन जो सवाल उन्होंने उठाए वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट सवाल है. एंड इलेक्शन कमीशन हैज़ फेल्ड टू रिस्पॉन्ड प्रॉपरली. इलेक्शन कमीशन ने प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस खत्म होने के पहले जो उन्होंने सोशल मीडिया पे डाला उसमें 3 चीज़ें कही. उन्होंने कहा कि पहली बात तो बेसलेस है, बकवास, इसका कोई मतलब नहीं है. लेकिन दूसरी लाइन में उन्होंने एडमिट किया कि हाँ कोशिश हुई थी. वो जो कोशिश हुई थी और जिस ओर इशारा किया गया है कि आप हमको वो एविडेंसेस नहीं दे रहे जो दरअसल हमको चाहिए थे, जो कर्नाटका सीआईडी को चाहिए था. वो एविडेंसेस क्या थे? चीफ इलेक्टोरल ऑफिसर ने कहा कि हमने तो सारी जानकारी दे दी है, बट 3 चीजें नहीं दी: डेस्टिनेशन आईपी, डेस्टिनेशन पोर्ट एंड द सीरीज ऑफ ओटीपीज. व्हाई दे आर नॉट गिविंग इट? एंड द क्वेश्चन व्हिच हैज बीन रेज्ड बाय राहुल गांधी इज अ रेलिवेंट क्वेश्चन, वेदर यू लाइक हिम और यू डोंट लाइक हिम, कि कहीं ना कहीं सेंट्रलाइज्ड तरीके से इसको ऑर्गेनाइज किया जा रहा है. दुर्भाग्य की बात क्या है कि जब हमारा आज का मीडिया SIR को लेकर अगर आप बात करें तो इन सब सवालों से पूरी तरीके से गायब है. सिर्फ एक ही बात कही जा रही कि राहुल गांधी हमारी संवैधानिक संस्थाओं को बर्बाद करना चाहते हैं, ख़त्म करना चाहते हैं. जो सवाल इंपॉर्टेंट है उन सवालों पे किसी तरीके का कोई इन्वेस्टिगेशन ही नहीं हो रहा. और आपको जान के हैरानी होगी कि हम हिंदुस्तान के मौजूदा टेलीविज़न चैनल्स को ज़बरदस्त तरीके से गालियाँ बकते हैं और उनको हिंदुस्तान के सबसे बड़े खलनायक बताते हैं. अगर आपको कभी मौका मिले तो पिछले 2-3 महीनों के पटना के अखबारों को उठा के खाली देख लीजिए, खासतौर पर हिंदी के अखबारों को उठा के देखिएगा. कहीं इस खबर का कहीं कोई जिक्र तक नहीं, फ्रंट पेज पे तो कहीं दिखाई नहीं पड़ रहा. मैंने अपनी जिंदगी में इतने नाकारा, इतने नाकाबिल, इतने बेवकूफ संपादक नहीं देखे जिनकी रीढ़ की हड्डी कहीं दिखाई नहीं पड़ती. और मैं आपको बता सकता हूं कि ज्यादातर लोगों ने खुद अपने आप को कुंडली मार के अंदर कर लिया है. उनको कोई नहीं कह रहा उस तरीके से आप इस तरीके से काम करिए. अभी भी कुछ अखबार हैं जैसे इंडियन एक्सप्रेस ने काफ़ी इन्वेस्टिगेशन करने की कोशिश की, काफ़ी चीज़ें वो उन्होंने लेकर आए हैं. उन्होंने कम से कम अपने पटना के रिपोर्टर से काफ़ी चीज़ें इन्वेस्टिगेट कराई हैं. बट अगर आप वहाँ के अखबारों को देखिए तो सिर्फ टेलीविज़न की बात नहीं है, ये पूरे मीडिया के अंदर पूरी तरीके से अंदर धंसा हुआ. और ये प्रश्न एक ऐसा प्रश्न है कि अगर इसका समाधान नहीं खोजा गया तो हिंदुस्तान का लोकतंत्र बिल्कुल बचेगा नहीं. लेकिन फाइनली मैं एक बात जरूर कहूँगा कि SIR is the blunder which this government has committed, and they will repent in coming days and coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashutosh. You raised a very important point, many important points, but I think I'm so glad you mentioned Jagdeep Chokar, because he was a figure who really spoke for all of us and represented us in the highest court, and very often managed to get a good, response. So now I go to Manisha. Manisha is going to talk more, I think, stop me if I'm wrong, but on why the press and the media have failed us in critiquing. The last point that Ashutosh dwelt on, I think, is what you're going to speak on.
Yeah, and actually, before why they failed, I just want all of us to think of this thing. over the last few months, you've had a political party give press conferences almost in a way which is very journalistic. And I think that is the most severest indictment of the mainstream media. When was the last time, and they're very senior journalists here, when was the last time you saw a political party get into almost a campaign mode with investigations, with proof, with, documentation? So the opposition here is not just doing their job of doing politics, which is their core job, but they are now having to do the job of journalism, right? So if you see the press conferences, it would be funny if it wasn't so sad, but the way the Congress has put forward its point, it is almost attempting to be journalistic. We'll give you facts, we'll give you proof. This is a person standing live in front of you. This is what has happened to him or her. This is the detail that we've done. These are the investigations that we've carried out. Should it, and we should really think about this, should it be left up to an opposition party to do investigative work on things that concern public interest? And that's my principal problem with this whole issue. Way before Congress came up with this vote chori thing, at Newslaundry we covered, right after the Lok Sabha elections, stories on deletions, additions, voter suppression, simply because people were talking about it. That's the journalist's job, right? You hear of rumblings in some constituency. You hear of people saying कि हम तो कब से साल से हमारा यहीं पे वोट था अब काट दिया गया. You hit the ground, you investigate what's happening. Because you've had the mainstream media completely fail at their basic job of following up on a public interest story, you now have this situation of a political party acting like journalists, which is very amusing to watch. And I think there should be some sociological commentary on what this really means for the democracy of India. And cut to now the conferences. Things far less credible get airtime and get space daily. Khan Market gang taking over, Tukre gang taking over our universities, ISI, making sure that they're giving money to some poor women who are protesting. Love jihad ho raha hai roz, video game jihad ho raha hai roz. Absolutely, stuff with zero credibility gets airtime, gets relevance. They're discussed with such seriousness. Plot to kill the Prime Minister. I don't know how many times, sometimes something happens, channels will come up with this new thing that we have discovered an insidious plot which the NIA does not know about, the police doesn't know about, but anchors get to know about it quickly. So my point is that things with very little credibility get 24/7 coverage. Here you have an opposition party which I said has made that journalistic endeavor. Whether they're right or wrong, how we should take their facts is a separate matter, and I'll come to that. But they've given you the basic crux of what they're saying, which is not as flimsy as, say, Khan Market gang taking over India. But you don't have that kind of coverage that it deserves, especially among the loudest channels. I'd say even with the newspapers, you've had the bare minimum when it comes to very serious allegations made by the opposition party. And I think the other thing which I'm very amused by, that in response to these allegations that the Congress party has made, and I would really like Quraishi sir to come into it later, there are source-based stories that the ECI, referencing the ACI that you see everywhere now. Why should the ECI speak through sources? You are a constitutional body. This is not a story of national security. This is not defense-related. This is not about inner party fights. कि एक कैंप ने दूसरे कैंप के अगेंस्ट कुछ बोलना है तो sources leak कर दिया. Why should the ECI sources say things to the media? And why should the media accept it? We have had, after these allegations surface, channels running things like, sources say that Election Commission has found number of illegal Bangladeshis and Nepalis in Bihar. Sources have said that this is an attempt to destabilize democracy. Why should there be sources saying all of this? If you found illegal immigrants, then there should be a press conference where the Election Commission says that this is what we found. We found citizens who are not Indians, and we're going to remove X number of people from the voter rolls exactly because they're illegal immigrants. So the response to, I would say, a semi-journalistic, and I don't want to call it journalistic because I'll still be very cynical of whatever a political party says as a journalist, but at least the response to an effort which brings out investigations, brings out sources. Okay, sorry, 2 minutes. I just have 2 minutes, so I'll be very quick. The response to that should not be sources ये कह रहे हैं कि आप देश के खिलाफ हो. The third thing that I want to really touch on, and this I think concerns us as media, vote chori today is a slogan. It's a political slogan. I would not go so far as to say that it's a fact. But I think it is journalistic duty for us to investigate what those claims are, look at whether they are true or not, deploy the massive resources that many mainstream organizations have to actually send the reporters out. We've sent some in Bihar, despite being an independent news organization, not the resources that big organizations have, but send them out because the last CSDS survey, which is now the new villain, CSDS is also apparently puppet, stunning survey by them which said that trust in ECI has decreased by almost 80%, 18% in places like Uttar Pradesh. So decrease in trust in such a fundamental body, it is very concerning, it's very troubling, and I think the least the media can do is not just attack anyone who's, critical through sources. I hope I wrapped that up soon for you.
Thank you, thank you. No, I think there are many, many very important points that Manisha has raised. And I think the sources thing, it's very interesting, the way the ECI is responding to the story.
And I think journalists...
They are being so proactive, so much so that even as Rahul Gandhi was speaking, they put out statements.
Sources in the ECI.
Yeah.
And just to add one point, I do think that journalists who cover the beat seriously should reject putting out stories based on source. There should be a clear response that please tell us on record.
Right.
You don't have to tell us things through sources.
Right. And also your critique of the media in India today, I think, refers not just to this story, but so many others as well. You can use the same template. Now I turn to Yogendra, and I must say, Yogendra was the first person really to put this on the table in a systematic way. And to that, our hats off. Salam. No, really, because I was there when the first... the press conference type thing. No, it wasn't a press conference. It was actually a meeting that he organized immediately after this issue became public. And it was really the first time when political parties articulated this issue. And for that, Yogendra, really, that your work on this will really be seen as very, very, very substantial. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. I join Ashutosh Bhai and everyone else in remembering Jagdeep Chokar Saab, an inspiration for all of us. I'll limit myself to SIR. What's happened over the years is that the conversations around democratic reform, and there are many in the room who would remember the 1980s, 70s and 80s, the conversations were about democratic reform. In 1990s, it was narrowed and we are down to conversations on electoral reform, which is a subset of democratic reform. And sadly, now we are down to electoral integrity, which is a tiny subset of electoral reforms. So instead of moving forward, we are actually now taking steps back to reclaim this tiny little bits. What is electoral integrity? Electoral integrity is that the persons who vote, the person who's voted by the people should be elected. That's electoral integrity. We're down to debating that. And just when we thought that this is rock bottom, now we are discussing how to retain the universality of the universal adult franchise. This is our progress as a nation. It's exactly 3 months since SIR was unrolled. How do we measure the success or lack of it of the media in informing the country about the SIR? I'll mention a few things and leave it for all of you to judge whether the media has done what it should have done. To my mind, the widespread impression even today, possibly among some people sitting in this room, would be that SIR is about cleaning up the voters' roll. SIR is a revision of voters' list in Bihar, because there were some problems in Bihar's voter list and it needed to be pruned. So it's a somewhat intensive exercise about pruning and correcting and improving the voters list. This is a widespread impression even 3 months after this exercise was launched. Why am I surprised at this widespread impression? Because it's entirely mistaken. It is not a revision, it is not about Bihar, and there is nothing special about it. I keep saying special intensive revision is not about revising the voters list in Bihar. It is about revising the principles on the basis of which voting right is given in this country. It is, in that sense, a tectonic shift in the architecture of universal adult franchise in India. Now, this looks like a very big claim. Let me just say, and I'm very happy that Quraishi Saab speaks after me because he would correct if I'm making any mistakes in my statements. This special intensive revision does two things which are extraordinary in the history of Indian elections. Number one, it shifts the onus of putting someone on electoral rolls from the state to the individual. India is one of those countries in the world where putting you on voters list is a state-initiated activity. Someone comes to your house as they come during census, put you on the voters list. Of course, you can later on go and make corrections. If you want to move to some other place, you make an application. But by and large, someone comes to your house and gives you voting right. This is what has actually ensured that India's universal adult franchise remained universal. Those countries which have followed the other method, namely, it is individual's problem. You go and register yourself. If you haven't applied, what can I do? This is the United States of America. This is also, unfortunately, South Africa. And the results in all those countries are that the bottom 20-30% are knocked off from the voters list. So with one stroke, we have shifted from a state-initiated voter registration to an individual-initiated voter registration. You might say, no, the state was playing role. Yes, but what were they doing? The BLO was simply giving you an enumeration form to fill and say, 25 तारीख तक दे देना, अगर नहीं दिया तो छुट्टी. This has never happened in the history of India. This is against the fundamental tenets of universal adult franchise in India. Number two, the second principle was that there was a presumption of citizenship. If I come to your house, I presume that you are a citizen of India, unless I get a very special objection or evidence to the contrary. I never asked you for documents. In SIR, every single individual is being asked to provide documents because now the presumption is, I don't know whether you are Indian citizen or not, please prove it. These two fundamental changes are not about revision of voters list. These are about changing the fundamental principles on the basis of which right to vote has been granted in this country. Now you tell me, did the media tell you that this in the last 3 months? Some of them did, and you mentioned that. We must salute all of them, those who did. But in reality, what did the media tell you? If this abiding impression still remains, who is responsible? Now let me rattle off a few things that happened in practice. There was large-scale forging of enumeration forms in Bihar. Forms were being filled because the Election Commission wanted to show that we have 90% plus forms. Forms were being forged, filled by BLO. People in whose names forms were being filled had no idea that forms were being filled. Did the media report it? Did the newspapers of Patna report it? And this is the most shocking thing. Bihar has a very long tradition of glorious journalism. And बिहार गांव में अखबार पढ़ा जाता है. लोग सचमुच चाट जाते हैं अखबार को बिहार में. And nowhere was it reported in this biggest scandal of Bihar, did not feature anywhere in the newspapers of Bihar. Documents, this issue has been discussed to great extent because Election Commission not only wanted you to prove your citizenship, they wanted you to prove it through documents which Election Commission knew you do not have. So that bit got covered a bit, and the entire discussion was only about the nature of documents and so on and so forth, Aadhaar and so on. But were you told that in reality, Election Commission, while Election Commission would not accept a document which was there with almost everyone, which is Aadhaar, Election Commission invented a 13th document which did not exist in its list, which has nowhere been mentioned in any law or rule, which is Vanshawali. Only Indian Express did a few stories on that. Because once the case came to the Supreme Court and the figure of 65 lakh looked too big to handle politically, then the Election Commission stood on its head. Sorry, Quraishi साहब ये सब बातें कहनी पड़ रही हैं. They're standing on their head now to ensure कि यार 65 से ज़्यादा ना हो जाए. So now the oral instructions are काटना नहीं है. And they are saying, sir, document नहीं है, क्या करें? Then they are saying, कोई बात नहीं, वंशावली से कर दो. What is वंशावली? If I can show that earlier the rule was that you have to show that your parents, that if one of your parents is in 2003 list, then you don't have to give their certificates, but you have to give your own documents nevertheless. Then the Election Commission said you don't have to give your own documents. And now the Election Commission is saying, if you can find any mama, chacha, nana, anyone in the voters list of 2003, you are exempt. All this is happening orally, nothing on the paper. The biggest scandal, did the media report it? And one final bit, Pamela, I know I've crossed my limit. This whole business of illegal migrants and Bangladeshis. Let me now just give you facts and figures. On 24th June, when Election Commission gave that SIR notification, one of the probable reasons why it is being done is illegal migrants, illegal foreign migrants. But when Election Commission files a 900-page affidavit in the Supreme Court, the word foreign migrant does not feature there. Election Commission gives you daily reports, how many people have filed, how many dead, how many absent, how many permanently migrated, and what not. At the end of it, how many foreigners were detected? Not one figure given so far. 0, I assume. All right, Election Commission failed, but there are so many Bangladeshis and Rohingyas in Bihar, as you know. What did the BJP do? How many objections has the BJP filed on the millions of Bangladeshis and Rohingyas in Bihar? 0. As per Election Commission's statement in the Supreme Court, 0 objections. Chaliye bechari BJP bhi fail kar gayi. What did the people do? And this is the new data I'm sharing with you. We have now looked at all the objections filed in Bihar. 3 lakh objections were filed, of which 987 objections have been filed on the ground that someone is a foreigner. Out of 7.24 crore, 987 people were suspected to be foreigners. But hold your breath. Of them, 700 are Hindus. Only 221 are Muslims. And in case it did not amuse you enough, out of these 927 persons who are suspected to be foreigners, who is objecting to them? 702 of them are objecting to themselves. Yes, 700 people have filed applications in Bihar saying, please remove my name because I'm not a citizen of India. In other words, come and arrest me tomorrow morning. Isn't this joke worth being on the front pages of newspapers of this country? I rest my case here.
Thank you, Yogendra. I think the discussion is now actually going towards our final speaker. And it'd be interesting to know what Quraishi Sahab has to say. So we will listen and then we'll ask questions.
Thank you very much. I'm here as a student today because we have stalwarts like Yogendra ji. He has the maximum clarity on the subject, as we have been hearing, but some experience from my own posting in Election Commission. I've never been abused so much as in the last 3 months. And for two things. My book, or the original book, which Pamela also referred to, was called An Undocumented Wonder, The Making of the Great Indian Election. So people are saying, you call it undocumented wonder? Are you blind to what is happening? Do you still insist on this title for your book? I'm afraid not. In fact, I'm quite tempted to write a sequel to my book, The Decline and Fall of Indian Democracy. But for that, it will become maybe a 1,000-page book. Then there is no doubt that purity of electoral roll is essential. It's a constitutional requirement, it's a legal requirement, it is a foundation of the election. And at the same time, it is the biggest weakness of Election Commission. In fact, Jagdeep Chokar ji, till only recently, a month and 2 months ago, told me that he has been quoting me for the last 14 years one statement which I had made about the electoral roll. I had said that electoral roll is the soft underbelly of the Election Commission, because we have got over the criminalization of the kind, the both capturing and the violence before the poll and everything. But this is something. And in the last 5 years, many politicians who were coming to me of top seniority, Quraishi Sahab, EVM. I say, you're wasting your time, yours and mine. Well, you're barking up a wrong tree. But what you should be concerned about is electoral roll, and you are not bothered. एक कान से सुना, दूसरे से निकाल दिया. Attention ही नहीं थी. तो वही हो रहा है. And I told them, and I've written in that book 14 years ago, that election can be won and lost a year before the election through the electoral roll, which is what is happening. Now, SIR. We also were confronted with this view. We had a constant problem of the defective electoral roll, but we never thought of SIR because we referred to a 2004 decision of the then Election Commission that SIR is no longer advisable or necessary because we have already digitized our electoral roll. And we have the ID card. All we need to do summary revision, and which is what? 99% people are already on the roll. And they have come on the roll after 30 years of our effort. And these guys want to do it in 3 months. Now, we go to your doorstep and we say, look, this is your house, the 5 voters, these are the names, correct? Yes, correct. But if somebody is added, somebody has grown up, become more than 18, yes, we give a form 6. Somebody has migrated, we give a form 7 for deletion. And in fact, let me also tell you, Yogendra ji, nobody seems to know about it because I have not heard it in any debate. It happened in our time. The duplicate enrollment is a criminal offense. And what was the practice that if you come from Tamil Nadu to Delhi or Patna to Delhi or wherever to where, you were supposed to get your name deleted yourself. Imagine for a laborer to go back to Nagaland for the Tamil Nadu and get it deleted, it was impossible. We said, we don't want you to put you to inconvenience. Just on your new form, you have to be normally resident to get registered, and normally resident is defined as 6 months. A student come for 3 years, they are supposed to register here because they have more than 6 months. But we say, look on your application form, which is form 6, just write at the bottom, where were you previously registered, and we take the responsibility of getting it deleted. So if they have still found duplicate voters, so it is a failure of the institution that they could not do this. Secondly, the decision then was taken that since we have a digital roll, summary roll revision will be all right, which we do every year. And it was done in January of this year, on which basis some elections were contested, and general election last year was done on this 99% perfect electoral roll. Perfect electoral roll in January has become defective and imperfect within 4 or 5 months. One word which comes to my mind is niyat. उर्दू का लफ्ज़ है नियत, इसका तर्जुमा कोई कर दे कि नियत क्या है इसके पीछे. That is the main question. Now, the fact that we have been working so hard and to remove the duplicate voters. We have Aadhaar now. Aadhaar is there to help you to define the duplicates. In fact, when Nandan Nilekani took over in the authority there, he came to meet me and to find out where we stand, and by then we had 551 crore voters. And we had also started collecting biometrics in Goa. We normally do our experiments and pilots either in Goa for its small size or in Kerala because of its literacy. We had almost completed it, and we said, look, since you are collecting biometrics of the whole country, we will stop doing it. Why have duplicate expenditure? But we'll merge the two data in due course of time. Now, initially there was a setback. Supreme Court declared it illegal, but then later on Supreme Court declared it legal. Now, Aadhaar should have been used. Now, in the first place, in this order of 25th June, Aadhaar and EPICs were not used, which the Supreme Court asked. And I'm surprised that Ashutosh and Yogendra ji also did not talk of major omission, bigger than Aadhaar. EPIC, our own creation. We give you the EPIC and we do not recognize it. In fact, I wrote an article in Indian Express for which again I got an abuse. Hey, look, why did you wake up so late? Why did you write so late? Because for some reason, for 3 months, I was out of action. I was not writing for some family reasons, and also thinking that I'll wait for the day when the real rolls are out and we'll see whether NRC is happening a second time. So I wrote this article in Indian Express, why not inclusion of EPIC? And somebody called me and he said, look, if you had written only last week, it would have been brought up before the Supreme Court. But I said, doesn't matter, okay, I delayed it, but 4 days later it is coming again in Supreme Court. Nobody brought up the subject in Supreme Court. This is something which will appeal to them straight away. In the first place, they had mentioned this. Now, after that article, I got a phone call from a very senior diplomat who has been ambassador to Nepal. He said, as you know, we have an open border. You can travel with any of the document, but mainly it used to be Aadhaar, it used to be photo ID card, and the passport. When Aadhaar became controversial, they said we will not accept Aadhaar. Now, when EPIC has become not only controversial, rejected by its creator itself, Election Commission, they will be justified in saying that we will not accept EPIC. How many Biharis and Uttarakhandis and UPites have passport? Not even 1%. The kind of inconvenience and harassment it is going to cause to those people both is something to notice. Now, you mentioned about the sources, but you did not mention another so grave thing which is happening. Attack the Election Commission, in half an hour there will be a press conference by the BJP. Now, the BJP has become the spokesperson of the Election Commission, happening on a daily basis, and nobody has been batting an eyelid. So, it has to also be kept in mind. Then, I think since I can see her writing a slip, so which I thought it was for Manisha, but so at this point, these are some of the thoughts which I have basically in reaction to what I heard and my own experience. We had taken a conscious decision, and we are not fools. 20 years, different election commissions, at least 10 or 12 have come. We are not idiots at all, and we took a decision that we will not go for intensive revision. It's not necessary. And what a question in my mind, Yogendra ji, Now, who is getting harassed by this thing? 7 crore 25 lakh people, which means even the supporters of the party in power, even there, are they not getting harassed? Will they forgive? But chances are that they will forgive. And if we go by the experience of COVID, when they walked 1,000 kilometers, 1,200 kilometers, they still voted. For demonetization, they still impacted. And now the mind which has been created in the mind of most people, Bihari Naujawan, so much of unemployment, कि बेटा तुझको नौकरी चाहिए कि मुसलमान का सर, जवाब में ये मिलेगा नौकरी तो मिलती रहेगी जी, एक सर ला दो, हो सके तो 2 ला दो, और ये तो एक पर्टिकुलर शाह भी कर सकते हैं, ये जवाब है माँ का। ये ऐसा हो जाए तो ये सारी हैरासमेंट जो 7.25 करोड़ की हो रही है ना, उसका मुझे नहीं मालूम कि उसका इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा। नॉर्मली इस हैरासमेंट के लिए आफ्टर ऑल people must have gone from outside, from their workplaces to apply, and the way they were made to run from office from pillar to post. So that 3-4 days harassment, they should normally not forget. But will they or won't they? That is the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Quraishi Saab. I think many points have come through this, but I also want to raise the fact that, there is open payment now. Modi has just announced that he's going to pay 10,000 rupees to 70 lakh women. So why is there no pushback from the ECI on this very open way of transactional politics? The other important thing is this NRC question, which you touched upon. And in a way, what's happening is that the ECI is functioning like the Home Ministry, and bringing in NRC through the back door. So, and yes, it has become the spokesperson of the ECI, and for good reason, because it is hand in glove. Both the ECI and the BJP, I think it's quite clear from today's discussion, are hand in glove. So now I'm going to throw this discussion open to, there won't be time for too many questions, but at least let's have a question thing first. Yes, please, you can start, and then I think we'll have a whole bunch of questions, and then we'll leave it for our final responses.
पूरा नाम बताइए।
संजीव त्रिपाठी, रिटायर्ड सिविल सर्वेंट।
सिविल सर्वेंट की डेफिनेशन बताइए।
भारत सरकार का सिविल।
ये खुफिया के चीफ थे, RIW के।
अच्छा।
पूरा बताइए। अब आप खुफिया नहीं हैं।
Anyway, जैसा कि आप सब ने कहा सुना, हम लोगों ने certainly the credibility of the ECI is very low at the moment. That is what is the responsibility of the ECI? Primarily to ensure that every eligible Indian citizenship is allowed to vote. That is the primary responsibility, that every eligible Indian citizen votes, and also along with that to ensure that non-Indians do not vote. These are the, and I think this election commission or maybe successive election commissions may have failed in that. Now the question is how. I mean, it's easy to criticize and all that, find faults, but what is the way forward? How should we ensure that? And that is for, I mean, simply criticizing is not good enough, because the democracy, the credibility of our democracy is at stake. And we have to re-establish this credibility. How to ensure that? Now,
so Sanjeev ji, let's take that as your question.
I'm coming out with the question.
What is the
now,
way
a good thing
forward?
was done, I'm just saying, and during the UPA 1 government, during Dr. Manmohan Singh, 2005, they say it was citizenship act was amended. It was said that every Indian national will be given a biometric national identity card. Now 20 years have passed since then, but no concrete step has been taken. If this exercise is completed, and then this problem will not arise. Bangladesh it is. So what are your views? Should Indian nationals have biometric identity card or not? That is what.
Question. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted a clarification.
Introduce yourself.
Sorry, Yogendra Kumar. Actually, Mr. Ashutosh, but others I'm sure equally qualified and competent to answer that. I'm an old-fashioned person, so normally what would happen is that they would have a voter registration camp. You go there, proof of residence or whatever else required to prove that Indian citizen. And as Mr. Quraishi said, that if you're registered elsewhere, then you say you're registered there and it's cancelled. That's how one has seen it. Now, I understand from what he said and all this, the discussion has been going on, is that now these voters list is actually online. But it can be amended through some process online. The question is, what exactly is that process? Because normally I said you go to the voters camp, and where you register and so on and so forth. Here it's online. So what exactly is that process through which these amendments are taking place? That's one point. The second thing is a larger issue about which was raised. The magnitude of the distortion in the voter list which is mentioned. How is it that this particular mechanics of making these kind of distortion in the voters list, how is it that this was not seen earlier by whether you're an NGO or a journalist or a political party who also have their workers? So I'm a little surprised by that. And just one small point. This issue came up about this Mr. Gandhi's press conference where he mentioned about a particular constituency. And in that it was mentioned that the state CID actually investigated that. And there was correspondent election commission. Why has that correspondence not been released? I mean, this is a matter of public interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes, please, ma'am. Your name, please.
I'm Neena Degupta. I want to know from the journalists here, in 2004 elections, the parliamentary elections, the exit polls were continuously...
2024 you're talking of.
Yeah, 2004. 24/7 they kept on saying
2024 or
2004? 2004 parliamentary elections. Okay. The exit poll outcome was that Shining India was really going to shine and it's going to come back in absolutely vast numbers. What happened was the Congress party wasn't prepared to take over and they won hands down. They won so many. How did the media go so wrong? Recently, the elections in Haryana said Congress party was winning so many seats in the Legislative Council, and overnight, BJP said, no, Congress party has not won, we have won. So the BJP took over. How does that happen?
Okay, thank you. I think we have three very clear questions. I'm going to repeat them for our purposes. What is the way forward? Is there a way forward? 2, that the voter list is online. How can it be amended and what exactly is the process? How is it that the magnitude of distortion that has happened took so long for the country to realize the magnitude? And finally, I'm reading from Yogen Kumar's questions. Why is it that the state CID that Rahul Gandhi spoke about, why is the correspondence between the state CID and the ECI not made public? And finally, Neena's very important question, what happened in 2004? How do you account for the fact that the BJP lost that election? And similarly, how do you account for the fact that in Haryana, despite the media, calling it in another direction, it went to the BJP? So I think these are three important questions. In our responses, I think we will be able to take one round of comments so that we can, then end, because we have to end, say, 10 to 8 or so. So that will give us about 15 to 20 minutes. And just for fairness, I'd like to sort of reverse the order. So now, Quraishi Saab.
First of all, Mr. Tripathi, you have mentioned about biometric. Actually, Aadhaar has biometrics of the entire country. Right. And
It's proof of your identity or assumed identity. It's not a proof of your nationality.
No, it is not. Yeah, quite right. It is not. It's a proof of your identity and your address. And it also mentions that you are a foreigner. It mentions you are in Nepal. It does.
Aadhaar card does not mention.
Are you sure?
100%.
Chalo, okay, fine. Yeah, in any case, Aadhaar has the biometrics of the entire country. You only have to tweak it to convert it into a national ID, instead of going through the exercise all over again. Secondly, this FIR, somebody asked this question, that election commission, after putting fire, how dare you do this and give an affidavit within 7 days, the nation wants to know. After that, it was proved, and election commission itself has filed an FIR that there has been a fraud. There have been fraudulent deletions of about 6,000 or 8,000 voters, and they would use it as a red herring.
Against whom he wants?
Generally, somebody has anonymous. Whereas now they will use it only to deflect any questions. Oh, we have already filed an FIR. First of all, as I've already pointed out, that FIR filing is an admission that there has been something wrong, which is exactly what the gentleman was saying. Now, the stupidity here is the police, after 6 months when they wake up, they will only come to the election commission because the data is with the election commission, it belongs to them. बताओ भाई 8,000 कौन से थे जो डिलीट हुए? बताओ ये किस ने उनको डिलीट कराया था? उनके फ़ोन नंबर बताओ. सारी information is with the election commission, and election commission has filed in and is not giving this information itself. They have this information. At least now उनको थोड़ी शर्म होती तो ये सारा डेटा खुद रिलीज करते, बजाय पुलिस वाला आके उन्हीं से पूछना है. डेटा उन्हीं के पास है. Then exit poll का मैं फिलहाल जाता. I wanted to comment on it. When again, I'm surprised at the depth of knowledge of the media. Exit polls, according to the law, are illegal since 2011. Even conduct of an exit poll is illegal. If you cannot conduct it, how can you release it at the end of 5 phases or 7 phases? An election commission is also guilty of it. They say, you can release the figure only after the election, whereas you can't even conduct it otherwise. That is the language of the law. Nobody is following it up. क्यों हो रहा है ये illegality?
I'll take up two questions. One is, why was this problem with voters list not noticed earlier? It was indeed noticed, commented upon, written about. I remember Lok Satta, when it was a NGO, they had conducted a very systematic study of Hyderabad and found that there was up to 40% errors in the voters list in Hyderabad then, about 20 years ago. So that it is a soft underbelly has been known. In my previous life as a student of elections, I wrote about it. And I don't know if it was Quraishi Saab or someone else, now I forget. I went to Election Commission more than once with a proposal. And the simple proposal was, why don't you check 1% sample of your own electoral rolls? And anytime I go to Election Commission, they assume that I've come asking for a project. And I said, no, I don't, I'm incapable of doing 1% of Indian sample. That's huge. And I said, why don't you ask NSS also conduct it? The register of death and birth in India has exactly this protocol, that 1%, that while we have a full register of birth and death, we know that there are errors. So 1% sample is checked. The result of that full and the sample both are published in the public domain. Why doesn't the Election Commission do so? So that's been a long-standing problem which Election Commission has not tried to address. There are many things that Election Commission in its good old days could have also done, but it did not do. What we are facing now is a problem of a different order. These were errors. Now we are dealing with systematic manipulations. These are two very different things. So that's now being talked, because manipulation makes for news. Errors do not make for news. What is the way out? I have been thinking about it. My sense is that actually intensive revision is not a bad idea. There are two kinds of revision, as Quraishi Saab have said. There is a summary revision. So it's not that there's an online and you go only for a camp and so on. Election Commission has beautiful procedures. I mean, if you actually read the Election Commission's manuals, ये तो राम राज है एकदम, मतलब manual में everything is written beautifully. So we have very good procedures for all these things. But as Quraishi Saab said, 20 years ago, there are two kinds of revisions. One is a revision which is done annually, which is called summary revision. And there was an earlier practice that every 5 years or so, you would junk the existing voters list and you would create a fresh de novo voters list. That was called intensive revision. Election Commission stopped doing it after the computerized rolls came, which was a good decision. But I think there was one problem which has persisted, which Election Commission never noticed, that when there is annual revision, additions take place, deletions do not take place. And dead people on the electoral rolls have kept accumulating over the years. So there is a serious problem in our electoral rolls, and I personally think that doing an intensive revision is actually a good idea. What is intensive revision? That BLO goes house to house and says, आपके घर में 6 लोगों का नाम registered है, वो 6 लोग कौन है, कोई बाहर है, नहीं है, dead है, कोई और घर में है तो नहीं जिसका नाम जुड़ना चाहिए. This kind of an exercise has not been done for some time. So doing this is actually a very good idea. And if it is done in the name of SIR, I will not object to it. The problem is that with this very decent provision, SIR brings in these two bits of poison. Fill an enumeration form, show me document. These are completely unnecessary, and they have produced no, I can give you evidence that the level of accuracy of electoral rolls has come down because of SIR instead of going up. So that is one way forward, which is to conduct a good old style intensive revision for which laws exist, rules exist, protocols exist. Just do it. Finally, to your other question, which is very important, and I've been thinking about it, about national identity card. I know most of my friends have opposed it. Most of my progressive civil society friends have opposed the idea of an identity card. So the funny thing was that most of my friends who had opposed Aadhaar in a separate petition before the Supreme Court were now arguing for Aadhaar in the case of SIR. I have now come to a tentative conclusion that actually a national identity card is not a bad idea. That is to say, tweak Aadhaar, do one round of corrections and additionalities of Aadhaar, and just get done with it once and for all, instead of this idiotic Bangladeshi Rohingya nonsense going on every time. Jharkhand mein Rohingya, Bihar mein Bangladeshi. I've told you the actual numbers, And when the government of India was asked on the floor of Parliament on 15th of March 2019, how many foreigners have ever been discovered, the number was 3. So I just want this nonsense to end. And if the cost of ending this nonsense is having a tweaking Aadhaar to make it almost a national citizenship identity card, maybe it's worth it.
So I'll take ma'am's question on journalists getting election wrong and exit pollsters getting elections wrong. One thing I think I'd like to emphasize is just because journalists have gotten election wrong or pollsters have got it wrong, it doesn't mean that the election itself is rigged or stolen, because journalists have traditionally for a very long time gotten elections wrong, and there are various reasons for it. Increasingly, I think because of talk TV, opinions being more important than ground reportage, you have this trend of, everyone coming on board as an expert even though they're not. So you are not seeing journalists who've actually been on the ground, have reported in a constituency, have actually spent time talking to voters. They're basically people who talk to a party spokesperson, party office, get some intelligence from BJP, get some intelligence from Congress, and then come on TV or come on these debates and pretend to be, analysts and experts in what the country wants. And for journalists who are actually invested in the idea of reportage, the idea of actually understanding which way the election is going, it is simply difficult to come to any journalist who covers elections. You know, the most hardworking of people would talk to 50 people at max at a constituency with lakhs and lakhs of people. They can give you a good sense of what the issues are, what the sentiments are, where you see people are unhappy with the incumbent, where you see what is attracting them about the opposition. But any journalist who travels and then says, you know, yehi jeetega, I'll be a little suspicious of that. It's a fun thing to do within newsroom. We also do it. You know, who do you think is winning? Who do you think is losing? But I'd be generally suspicious of journalists or experts who come on channels without having gone anywhere to just say ye jeet rahe hain, wo jeet rahe hain, based on simply charcha, you know, who you've spoken to. What journalists, like I said, can do is give you an accurate understanding of issues on ground. Just because Modi wins doesn't mean that all the reportage that we've done on people very upset with, exam leaks, for example, or paper leaks, or that unemployment is a genuine concern. All of that doesn't get negated. So the grumblings that you hear on the ground as a reporter against an incumbent, that don't get negated if the party is chosen back to power. And similarly, I think we have to be very careful in India when you're going out and you're talking to people. A lot of people complain. They will say that, you know, ye nahi hua, wo nahi hua, 4 cheezein nahi hui hain, ek scheme nahi mila hame. Doesn't mean they're not going to vote for the party in power. So voting is a very complex, emotional, and, you know, people who study it, I personally would go by opinion polls of, you know, very select few. I mean, I look at CSDS data, I think, very carefully, because I think they actually invest some time, they have some methodology to what they're doing, and they give you a good sense of sentiments on the ground, which I think is the best thing you can do in such a diverse country. And again, simply criticism doesn't mean that you know who they're going to vote for. They may very well critique the party in power, but may go and vote for them. So putting out very conclusive sort of predictions, it's a dangerous game. It's become a fashionable thing, and it's become an important thing to do for a media that's driven by eyeballs, by TRP. So you're having this reality show sort of an experience every night, ki aaj kaun jeet raha hai, aaj kaun aage ja raha hai, aaj kaun piche ja raha hai. And that's what you've seen around election coverage. Pollsters, I think there's a serious problem of disclosures. We don't know who's funding pollsters, exit pollsters especially, and I'll distinguish that from journalists. Journalists are different from exit pollsters and poll companies that sometimes just come 2 months before elections. You don't even know who's funded them. You don't know their sample size. You don't know the sort of questions they're asking. You don't know whether they have people on ground asking those questions or it's just phone calls. So there are lots of things about exit polls and their methodology that aren't clear to us, that aren't transparent. So I would always be very careful of what they're saying. And I think it's important to emphasize that journalists getting something wrong doesn't necessarily mean that that election was completely rigged. We could often get things wrong, sometimes because we're lazy or we have actual malice, sometimes because we're human. We make mistakes. We misjudge, you know, things when we go on ground.
Now, in Haryana, it was actual people polled for the Congress. A lot of people came to me and told me, you know, we voted for the Congress. Kya ho gaya? BJP kaise aa gayi?
मैडम हमारे ख्याल से
पर वो एनेक्डोटल है या कितना है, दैट्स व्हाट वी नीड टू नो.
उस सवाल का जवाब खोजने के लिए हम आज यहाँ बैठे हुए थे. इलेक्टोरल रूल्स पे जब बात कर रहे हैं तो कहीं ना कहीं उसका जवाब वहाँ पर भी. संजीव जी, आई वुड लाइक टू करेक्ट यू ऑन द आधार कार्ड. फॉरेनर्स कैन गेट एन आधार कार्ड इफ दे लिव हियर 182 days and in the last 1 year they are here. They can go take the passport. हाँ, but not the citizenship. हाँ, not the citizen. हाँ. ये जो राहुल ने जो प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करके जो सवाल खड़े किए हैं, देखिए पहली बात तो ये कि अगर सेंट्रलाइज्ड तरीके से इसको मैनिपुलेट करने की कोशिश की जा रही है तो बहुत ही एडवांस टेक्नोलॉजी होगी विच वी आर नॉट अवेयर ऑफ, क्योंकि नॉर्मल तरीके से अगर आप करेंगे तो पकड़े जाएंगे. इसलिए जो आपने कहा कि वहाँ के जो चीफ इलेक्टोरल ऑफिसर हैं उन्होंने 14 मार्च 2025 को खुद ही एडमिट किया है और खुद ही इन्होंने लेटर लिखा है चीफ इलेक्टोरल ऑफिसर, चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर दिल्ली को, कि ये 18 रिमाइंडर्स मेरे पास कर्नाटका सीआईडी के आए हुए हैं. इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग ऑफिसर्स बार बार हमसे कह रहा है कि हमें ये डॉक्यूमेंट्स चाहिए, हमको ये इन्फॉर्मेशन चाहिए, प्लीज़ यू प्रोवाइड. स्टेट इलेक्टोरल चीफ इलेक्टोरल ऑफिसर हैज़ रिटन टू द इलेक्शन कमीशन asking them, I've been pressed for these information, please provide the information. So that means what the CID is saying and what the Rahul Gandhi is saying is correct, that there are certain information which has to be given. वो इन्फॉर्मेशन क्या है? जो पहली बार CID ने मांगा था वो ऑब्जेक्टर्स की लिस्ट मांगी थी, वो दिया था, फ़ोन नंबर मांगा था, वो दिया था, IP एड्रेसेस थे, वो सारी चीज़ें दी थी. जहाँ पे मामला रुक गया वो था कि डेस्टिनेशन IPs एंड डेस्टिनेशन पोर्ट एंड डेस्टिनेशन OTP. इसका मतलब क्या है कि जो टेक्नोलॉजी जो इस्तेमाल कर रहा है बहुत ही डायनामिक टेक्नोलॉजी, बहुत ही एडवांस टेक्नोलॉजी है, जिसको आप सिंपली फ़ोन के IP एड्रेस से नहीं पकड़ सकते. अगर वो डेस्टिनेशन IP अगर दे देंगे तो आप उसको लोकेट कर पाएंगे कि इस वक्त उसकी पोजीशन क्या. ये पॉसिबल है कि वो जो टेक्नोलॉजी जहाँ से इस्तेमाल की जा रही है वो हिंदुस्तान में ना हो, हिंदुस्तान के बाहर किसी कैरिबियन कंट्री से ऑपरेट किया जा रहा हो, वहाँ से उसको डिलीट किया जा रहा हो. क्योंकि ये इतना बड़ा मामला है कि अगर पकड़ा जाएगा और अगर उसका एंड ओनर अगर पकड़ में आ जाएगा तो वो पॉलिटिकल पार्टी ही अपने आप खत्म हो जाएगी. If suppose करो somebody really finds him with the proof कि this political party and this political leader has been trying to do this, that is the undermining, the hijacking the entire electoral system, so that party will not exist. That is for sure. So very advanced technology has been used, and for that this destination IP ports and is needed. But that's again the realm of theory. I'm not a student of technology, but that's what I think should be. And that's one reason कि वो destination IP ports and वो नहीं provide कर रहे हैं. जहाँ तक आपने कर्नाटका हाई कोर्ट के बारे में कहा था, कर्नाटका CID, कर्नाटका जो चीफ इलेक्टोरल ऑफिसर की जो लेटर उसने लिखा है उसमें बाकायदा डेट वाइज मेंशन किया कि these are the 18 reminders which the CID has sent to the chief electoral officer in Karnataka. Their CID has found 100 SIM cards, and I have been told that almost 80% of investigation is complete. And but they want, because वो उनका कहना है कि जो फॉर्मल ऑफिशियल इंफॉर्मेशन जो इलेक्शन कमीशन देगा उसके बाद उनकी इन्वेस्टिगेशन ज़्यादा ऑथेंटिक होगी, क्योंकि अदरवाइज दे कैन इलेक्शन कमीशन कैन ऑलवेज से दीज डेटाज इज नॉट करेक्ट. If election commission gives those data and on that basis if somebody is caught, then there is no going back here and there, then that means it's correct. जहाँ तक आपने 2004 की बात की मैडम, I can only say कि there are honest pollsters and there are dishonest pollsters. And the honest pollsters I consider only two in this country. One the Pranay Roy and another Yogendra Yadav. And both of them after election they said कि no, ये number हमसे नहीं होगा, हम number नहीं करेंगे. Now on a daily basis somebody who is a 24 years old heading an organization agency and proclaiming to be a pollster appear for 6 months then disappear. Nobody knows from where they had come, who is funding them, what is their data bank, nothing. The problem is the dishonest pollster. That's why every year from 2014 onwards आपको कम से कम 8 से 10 ऐसे नामों वाले एजेंसीज मिल जाएंगे जिसके बारे में आपने पहले कभी सुना नहीं था. 1-2 इलेक्शंस में आते हैं फिर उसको पूरी तरीके से गायब हो जाते हैं. आई हैव नो प्रॉब्लम विद एग्जिट पोल्स, बिकॉज एग्जिट पोल का मतलब ये होता है कि आपने रिजल्ट आ गया, अब आप वोटर्स को प्रभावित नहीं कर सकते. तो एग्जिट, आई हैव नो क्वारल विद एग्जिट पोल्स. एंड एग्जिट पोल के बाद क्या होता है कि आपको अपनी जो क्रेडिबिलिटी होती है एजेंसीज की वो ज़्यादा स्टेक पर होता है, क्योंकि अब तो रिजल्ट्स आ चुके हैं, अब मतलब सारे पोल वोट पड़ चुके हैं. आपको साबित करना होगा कि मैं जो नंबर्स दे रहा हूँ वो 3 दिन के बाद सही होंगे, 4 दिन के बाद सही होंगे. प्रॉब्लम विद ओपिनियन पोल्स, because opinion polls have been used dramatically to influence the voting behavior of the voters.
Yeah, I think we'll stop
So,
there.
yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
I get the feeling that for what Mr. Yogendra Yadav said, the problem in Bihar is solved. The question is you're worrying about other things. Is that the correct impression or is that the wrong impression?
No, sir. The problem in Bihar is not solved. What has happened is that the extent of disenfranchisement that was likely to have happened has been reduced. It was headed for something like 2 crore people's disenfranchisement. But because of the Supreme Court's intervention after 65 lakh names had been struck off, now the Election Commission has been forced to go on the back foot. And my reading is, as long as the case is in the Supreme Court for the next 2 weeks or so, because final hearing is 7th and 8th, Election Commission wants to be a good boy till the 7th of October. The real game...
Is there enough time to do that?
Election Commission has given oral instructions to ensure that no substantial deletions take place on the basis of absence of document. So in Bihar, much of the damage, whatever damage had taken place earlier, more or less it's been stopped there. But the real game, the name of the game is somehow get a good verdict from the Supreme Court, and after that use it as an instrument of disenfranchisement.
Can I get 30 seconds? Just 30 seconds. Election Commission ने अभी कल के अखबार में आया हुआ कि उन्होंने जो एडिशन और डिलीशन वाला था उसमें आधार कार्ड को मोबाइल से लिंक कर दिया है. I think there's some advancement has been made. So now the issue is कि अगर आधार कार्ड अब आप एक्सेप्ट कर रहे हो तो पहले क्यों नहीं एक्सेप्ट कर रहे थे? प्रॉब्लम क्या थी? what was the प्रॉब्लम? सेकेंडली आपने SIR करने के पहले किसी से कोई कंसल्टेशन नहीं किया. नाउ द न्यूज़ इज कि वो पूरे देश के अंदर SIR करेंगे और सारे स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं उनसे बातचीत करेंगे.
बातचीत ये नहीं करेंगे कि SIR करनी चाहिए कि नहीं.
हाँ,
बातचीत ये करेंगे कि इस स्टेट में क्या किस तरह से क्या माइनर प्रोसीजरल प्रॉब्लम्स हैं. द रियल डिस्कशन नेवर टुक प्लेस, विल नेवर हैपन.
I think the real discussion has happened. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
So that was a really insightful discussion and a complex subject, but I think we are going away with many, enlightened. So thank you to our wonderful panelists. Thank you to Dr. Quraishi, who was not well, and he still made it here. Manisha, Yogendra ji, Ashutosh, thank you so much. And thank you, Pamela, for moderating this discussion. Many thanks to India International Center for supporting the Media Foundation. And also thank you to our wonderful audience. And good night.
Good night.